He has worked on clothing for Yamaha, and he is, probably most importantly, he is a mean blues harmonica player. And I know that because if you go onto YouTube, which I have done, you will hear him performing and indeed teaching the harmonica. He really is a multi-talented guy. Now, I don't want to tell you what Lee's going to say when he's just about to say it, but in essence, I suppose I can give you an insight. Lee is so convinced about design, he wants to make it, or to have it be made, a core competency within business life. In fact, indeed, within life in general. Just the way as finance is, just as the way people have to have practical skills, design should be there as a core issue. And that's how important he regards it. And I think that enthusiasm that he has for the subject will be communicated to you right now. Lee, floor is yours.
Thank you. Is my mic on? Yes, brilliant. I'll put this here. So, thank you very much for inviting me here to speak about design and innovation. It's a subject I'm very passionate about, and I hope you find the talk interesting. Just to get a sense of the room, who here is a designer or works in the design industry? Okay, quite a few. And who in here works in business, runs a business, has a business? Okay, so some designers also putting up their hands. And who here works in government or education? Okay, so a real mix, and I think that's fantastic. I recently went to an event hosted by the Design Council, which was all talking about the importance of design, and the event was totally attended by designers, and at the end, of course, everyone agreed, and the event didn't really ladder up to anything. And what's so great is when you put government and education and business designers together, because that's where the action is. Also, who in here has a BlackBerry or uses a BlackBerry? Okay. Of those people who use a BlackBerry, how many of you like using your BlackBerry? Who in here has an iPhone? Who here likes using their iPhone? Now, I think that really sums up the essence of what we're here to talk about. BlackBerry dominated the mobile phone industry, and now it's nowhere. And Apple is a fantastic example. It's often used, but it is just such a fantastic example of the kind of change and the kind of change we're experiencing in our everyday lives. We see and feel design in the products that we use, and if the design of your product and service is not right, your business is basically going to be toast. So I want to start talking about 3 reasons why we see design becoming so significant. So the first one is disruptive innovation. So we've seen the physics of entire business sectors completely rewired over the last few years. The travel business, retail through Amazon, broadcasting through YouTube, communication through Skype. So, and this is a kind of old story in a way, but the way that we, shop and organize our lives being completely transformed over the last few years, giving rise to these amazing new, powerful companies that didn't exist until relatively recently. I think that disruption is exemplified by this. So you look at Kodak, very old, very innovative company, in fact, founded and created the first digital camera in 1975. At its peak, it dominated 90% of all the film sales in America. And essentially, it lost track of its purpose. So Kodak thought it was in the business of chemicals and not in the business of sharing memories. And because they thought its purpose was coupled to the technology of the day, when that technology changed and they weren't on top of what their purpose was, they got totally lost. And what they were replaced by is companies like Instagram. So Instagram was founded in, when was it founded? 2010, and it was acquired by Facebook for $1 billion, and only 7 people work there. And I think this really signifies how you get these companies that have huge user bases, huge revenue potential emerging very, very quickly. The Pebble, I don't know if anyone is familiar with this. So the Pebble is a great example of disruptive innovation and this idea of barriers to entry completely melting. So the Pebble is a smartwatch that runs apps. So for instance, if your phone is ringing, you can see who it is on your watch before you answer it, and it can run lots of other apps. It was invented by a small number of people, about 5 different people. They made it using rapid prototyping, 3D printing, CNC machines, and so on. They put a prototype up on Kickstarter, and they raised about $3 million in a couple of days, and they went on to raise $10.3 million. They didn't have to speak to a bank. It was totally crowdfunded, and they made a prototype, put it out there. Hey, everyone, would you like one of these? A shed load of people said yes, and off they go. And it's just completely changing the way people launch products. The other thing that we see is a new kind of mindset associated around innovation. So you're probably all familiar with meetup.com. So young people, well, not just young people, generally within the innovation space, it's very, very collaborative. People are open, they share information, they help each other, and clusters and different skill sets and creating the conditions where people have positive collisions is very, very important. And we see things like GitHub, where people are sharing and helping with coding and development. And in London, if you search startup, if you search innovation, if you search design, there are literally hundreds of meetups, and people are self-organizing and coming together and making things happen where it doesn't exist before. There are meetups on 3D printing, just anything you want. There's a digital meetup called Glug London that has 6,500 members. So it's a really, really vibrant scene. You see maker spaces, hack spaces, accelerators, incubators, so much vibrant activity in places like San Francisco, in Berlin, in London, in Manchester. So it's that ecosystem which supports innovation, which is so important. So big message here is innovation is no longer the domain of big business. Anyone can play. Anyone can get involved. If you have a good idea, it's easy to make a prototype, it's easy to code a service, you put it up on the internet, you can get crowdfunding, and there is amazing disruption happening as a result. And it's increasing, and its impact is becoming more and more profound. So you can buy a gene sequencer for a few £100s now. So people are starting to be able to experiment with biotech. You can have your genome mapped for $99. It's a company founded by the girlfriend or wife of one of the Google founders, 23andMe. We saw how politics is being disrupted by social media. We see everyday transactions like hailing a taxi. There's an app called Halo where you can just hail a cab. Such an obvious idea, but they're taking 10 or 20% of all taxi fares in London, and it's doing very, very well. Uber is a new app which is in about 30 cities around the world, a billion-dollar business, and it's relatively new. WhatsApp is another great example of the kind of disruption and change within the business sector. So WhatsApp's a messaging app that you're probably all familiar with. 55 people work there. They have a customer base of 430 million people. It was built by 35 people, and one software engineer can support 14 million concurrent users. So they completely changed what you can do with enterprise architecture. It was bought by Facebook for $19 billion, and it's only 5 years old. So really, we're living in a different world. And echoing some of Stephen's comments, we also live in a really interesting and important period of human history. So we have the onset of some really profound global challenges. Climate change, do we have a sustainable model? There's growing inequality, there's aging population. So we really have some major challenges coming down the road. So we're living in a revolution, and the bottom line is the way business leaders steer their business has totally changed. You can't use traditional MBA-style strategy. You can't have a 5 or a 10-year plan because, frankly, you have no idea what the world is going to be like in a couple of years. So we see design methodologies, and design thinking being embraced by more and more companies because design can help you design and create things people want rather than being tech-driven. Another big change why we see design becoming so important is the nature of value. And when I say value, I mean the benefit, the value exchange, what the parties are exchanging between each other has changed. So we've moved from a world of products to experiences. So if we think going back 30 or 40 years, you had product design, and we can use a phone as a good way of thinking about it. So you just have products, but then those products started to have software in them, in your washing machine, in your phone, gradually becoming more complex. Then we've moved into products and connected ecosystems. So it's not just my music player, it's my music, it's the iPod and my iTunes. Then we're in the period where we kind of are now, where I want to get my content and my tools and my services on all my devices. If I have a book, I want to read it on my iPad, on my Kindle, on my iPhone, and I have lots of different tools which I can access on lots of different devices. And we're just on the edge of moving out of that period into the connected world. So we see digital leaving the web. So digital is no longer about browsing websites. It's about hailing taxis. It's about ordering my shopping. But it's also about the quantified self, measuring healthcare, my connected home, all these kind of things. And where it will go next, not quite sure, but probably to do with some kind of embedded technology and augmentation and Google Glasses and all that kind of stuff. So the nature of value has changed. We've gone from value being contained in one thing to value being distributed. So Nike is no longer about walking into a shop and buying a shoe. Barclays is no longer about a branch in a checkbook. We're a software company. We're lots of different things because value is now distributed. And that's changed the way people interact with brands. We interact with companies in different ways. We expect to interact with government in a different way and services in a different way. I want to use my device, I want to text, I want to phone them up, I want to walk into a branch, and that means services are becoming more complex, and design offers a way of managing complexity. And then the third one touches to the introduction. People's expectations have completely changed. So people are using technology and well-designed services on a regular basis, from the phones that we use and the software that we use and the apps are on our phones. So people have a different level of expectations. And if your product or service is the equivalent of BlackBerry, it's at risk. People expect things to be easy to use, intuitive, and engaging. And design is all about empathy. And it offers a way of tapping into and understanding human needs and a way of applying and usefully utilizing technology and opportunity. So, touching about some preconceptions about design, we've already heard about design is more than aesthetics. I think I still encounter at Barclays, it's a company that's 300 years old, very traditional and conservative, but recognizes a need to change. There's still a lot of people who think, design is where the posters are done. Now, this is a long quote, but I think it's worth going through, and it's all touching upon this idea about what is the broader definition of design and what is design really about. And it's from John Egan, who, when he was CEO of BAA. So as an airport operator, we must be capable of moving millions of people efficiently We must do more than move people. We must be experience managers. At the same time, we must ensure that our facilities are designed so they're easy to build, efficient to run, and affordable to maintain. The design of an airport is about more than painting and decorating. Creating the right customer experience is a function of the facility's size, shape, its ambience, quality of light, and the behavior of the staff and how they communicate. So design is the primary means by which we give customers what they want and need. So that's not from a designer, that's from a company CEO. So if we think about designing the NHS, visiting doctors, trying to redesign healthcare, trying to redesign banking, it's a lot more than what it looks like. The future of banking is not going to be decided by typography. I'm sorry, it's not. So actually, another way of thinking about it is everything around us that's man-made is designed. Everything. Everything that's been created, a human being has made decisions about how it works, the materials. So the only question is, do you care or do you not care? And if we think about Apple clearly, if we think about as a spectrum, they obviously passionately care about the design, not of the products. The product's a means to an end, about the customer experience. Apple have a patent on the box. They design how long it takes to open, which is about 7 seconds. They think about everything. They've changed industries like the music industry. They have changed the film industry. They have changed the way people make albums. They have changed the service industry through things like the Genius Bar. They have touched every part. Sorry about that. Must be some kind of alert. Talking about Apple too much. So, where do you want to be along that line? And I would suggest Apple, I think, is the most valuable company in the world, or the second most valuable company in the world. And if you think about Sony's dominance, Sony used to own the Walkman space. Everyone used to have Sony Walkmans, and they owned all the music content, but they just totally lost their purpose, and they were destroyed by this little company. And this is another great quote that comes from Steve Jobs, who's not a designer, but obviously very passionate about design, and again is a great way of summing up what design is. So most people make the mistake of thinking design is what it looks like. People think it's a veneer, that the designers are handed a box and told, make it look good. And that's not what we think design is. It's not just what it looks and feels like. Design is how it works. And Rolls-Royce is like this. Their engineers are considered designers. So design is how something works. Great design is not always pretty. Amazon is a fantastic service. It's brilliantly designed. It's brilliantly delivered. Their website is easy to use. It floats all this kind of dynamic, personalized content. It's genius. It is not good looking at all. Same with eBay. Lots of people, they're hugely successful. They're brilliant designs because of the usability. Designers are also like lawyers. When people think about, design, what is design? Well, you would not give a piece of litigation to a lawyer who does conveyancing. There are lots of different types of designers. Paul Smith is a very different designer to Johnny Ive. And solving complex problems means interdisciplinary teams and building the right set of skills, just like you do in business. Talk about some impacts of design. So we see a lot of change. Hopefully that gives some color around what design is and why it's becoming so important. So design-orientated companies are now more successful, and we see that from the demise of companies like BlackBerry, and we see the rise of companies like Apple and so on and so forth. A recent DMI report, the Design Management Institute, as a 10-year study, showed that design-orientated companies outperform other ones on the USA Standard & Poor's Top 500, the SAP Index, by 228%. So design is good business. We also see designers now founding companies. Has everyone heard of Airbnb? Okay, so Airbnb was founded by a designer. And so the Airbnb allows people, it connects people in a different way. And it's invented a new business model. It's a new business model, new service design. They haven't invented anything different. They're just using the digital technology in a clever way. So it lets people rent out their rooms and their properties like a hotel. And they are totally disrupting the hotel business. They now have more rooms than the Hilton Group. They've just been valued at $10 billion, and it was founded in 2009, and 400 people work there. Nest, who's familiar with Nest? Okay, so Nest, everyone should go and have a look at Nest. So Nest was founded by a designer called Tony Fadell, who invented the iPod, and he started looking at devices which hadn't really been given much love. The thermostat, what a great example. Now, the Nest, as a thermostat, is a great example of distributed value. So it's not really about the device. The device is very easy to use, but it's how easy it is to set up. The fact that you can control your home on your mobile phone. It's about a connected system. They've just totally disrupted the smoke alarm. Now, people will pay $130 for one of these things, but all the smoke alarms talk to each other. You can monitor it from outside. It's really easy to set up. It tests itself. It shows different CO2 readings, and they've just been bought by Google for $3.2 billion. And they were founded in 2010. So that equates to about $2.7 million every day for being in business. It's about 100 people work there. And it's founded by a designer, and it has design at its core, not for design's sake, but because design lets you innovate and create great customer experiences and create new opportunities. We also see design becoming part of the boardroom. This is Mario Porcini, who's the Chief Design Officer of Pepsi. Barclays has a Chief Design Officer, Derek White. And Christopher Bailey, who was Chief Creative Officer of Burberry, is now the CEO of Burberry and running Burberry. We also see, as Stephen was talking about, Sarah mentioned, design being a vehicle for change. So design is a kind of mindset and an approach and a set of ideals which can be used by everyone. So, you know, great business leaders have empathy. Great business leaders are great problem solvers. So those are the main tools that designers have. And I think the kind of best case study we have at the moment for this is the government digital service in the UK, which has taken the 3,000 or so government websites and brought it down to one. And they won Design of the Year last year and won several awards. I'm just going to play a quick video.
This isn't about websites, it's about creating compelling digital services for government.
I wouldn't say that being open is a radical approach to government. I say it's the natural state of government.
You've got an approach to open data where the British government is now the world leader.
There's a lot of great civil servants and great government thinkers here.
This is the new civil service in the UK. This is how the civil service works in the UK.
Mike, tell us how this project first came about.
Who had the first idea for the government digital service?
Exactly.
It came as an idea from a report called Digital by Default, which, if you boil it down, it came down to four major outcomes, which is the first is to form a central government digital estate. The second thing was then to fix publishing, to start fixing this issue of indiscriminate publishing that government's been doing for 15 years. Then to get onto the meaty issues of sorting out transactions and making transactions work better for citizens and businesses. And the final bit is what we call go-ho service via APIs and other such magical wizardry is to open the whole thing up.
It's designed around the user, not around the needs of the desires of the government. And that's tended to be the case in the past.
Previously, there were literally thousands of government websites, and the only thing they had in common was that they were all different.
Not one of them looked the same. You had to learn a different language. You had to know how government worked to use government. And at the heart of what we think here is that actually there is only one user need, and that is, at the point of interaction, you're dealing with government.
Prettifying is not what it's about. I'm thrilled that gov.uk won this incredibly prestigious design award, but that wasn't about what it looks like.
It's about making sure that people will be using this and they will need to get something done at the end of the day or learn something. So rather than trying to make stuff look pretty for the sake of it, try and make things easy to use.
Jordan, tell us what you do at Government Digital Service. What do you work on?
So I work on gov.uk. And more specifically, I work on the mainstream team. So you'll see the things that we do, like when is the next bank holiday, or what is the VAT rate. So if you go to gov.uk and type in bank holidays,
Yep.
You'll see UK bank holidays here. And if you select that, you'll see highlighted straight away, the next bank holiday is the 27th of May. So by making it front and centre, people can get in and get out really, really quickly.
Has there been anything particularly surprising or enjoyable or distressing that you've worked on since you've been working on this project?
So I was surprised at how open we've been able to be. All the code that we write is published online. So other people, we've had other governments around the world who've made use of it, which is really good to see.
Increasingly across government now, more and more civil servants are recognising the value of being open, the value of talking to people vastly outweighs the risk of being tight-lipped. And it means embracing the fact that you share what you're doing with people outside because they might be interested, or importantly, they might find value in it, but you don't realise you're offering value yourself.
We've really taken the language and the cultural behaviour of many web-based companies and adopted it to government services. The heart of the internet generation is that you try something, you get users to use services, and then you iterate really quickly. And that's very different from how government services have worked in the past.
Typically, the way we've done these things is you enter into a big contract where you expect to specify everything at the outset. Then you have to go through an endless process of an outline business case, a strategic outline business case, a full business case.
Take about 6 months to write, in some cases over a year. Then we put it out to procurement. Because of procurement rules, that might take another 6 to 9 months to actually buy something.
By which time it will almost certainly be out of date. You're locked into a supplier, it's really expensive to make changes.
So what we've got to do is move from the language of procurement, and you've got to start thinking of commissioning, where you're actually changing stuff really, really quickly.
That business approach of being, let's get an alpha out there early and then a beta, and then when we do say we're ready now, be humble enough to say we won't have got it right, we'll keep iterating, we'll keep improving. That really forces you to have an agile development approach.
So I encourage anyone interested in seeing how design can change culture, the way people work, how problems are solved, how you can be more customer-centric, how you can be more agile, to look at the government digital service. And that was a video put together by The Guardian. It's on YouTube, and there's lots of information about GDS, and they share all their stuff online. So the impact of design, I think, is becoming self-evident. And investing in design is about investing in better customer experiences, innovation, and ultimately about delivering better outcomes. And personally, I see design becoming like a core business competency. Like you need great logistics, you need a great FD and a financial team. You also need to somehow include design in your thinking. So Barclays has started to embrace design, not a company that you would think would be doing something like this. I never thought I would be working at a bank, but I have to say it's absolutely brilliant. And I think financial services totally personifies the kind of sector that can benefit from design. You have the collision of a huge need to change, huge opportunities around leveraging technology, and there is huge disruption taking place in the financial sector from PayPal and innovative companies like Stripe and Square and Market Invoice and TransferWise and Co-Investor. Everywhere you look, there is innovation happening in the financial services sector. So this is the Barclays Design Lab. The team has a board-level mandate to start changing the way that we work. The design office is about 180 people now. It's only a couple of years old, but we have product designers, service designers, interaction designers, visual designers, developers, technology people, data scientists, behavioral scientists, all kinds of people looking at incremental improvement, but also really trying to think, what is the future of banking? How can we help people and deliver new products and services? We have a presence in America and in the UK, and we're also building a team in South Africa. We have a large company called ABSA in South Africa. And all that in a couple of years. What are the kind of things that we've done? Well, the team came up with a product called Ping It, which allows you to transfer money to someone else just using a mobile phone number. You don't have to be a Barclays customer to use it. It has lots of other functionalities around social, gifting, charity donations, paying your bill, that kind of thing. We also designed our mobile banking app with a partner called Us2, which is one of the highest rated apps in the App Store. But we've also changed the way that we work. So the photograph on the bottom left is we work in hopper tables. So rather than being siloed and something moving through a production line, at the start of the project, the designers, the product owner, the manager, the developers, all the people associated with that project come together, and they sit together and they work on that project and they crank it until it's done. So everyone's in close proximity, it's very collaborative, it's not siloed. So it's really changed the way that we work. So we try and work like a startup works. So right now, there are a bunch of 18-year-olds in garages all around the country that are going to invent something which could potentially destroy banking. What are we going to do about that? Mentioned earlier about the innovation ecosystem, and Barclays is also being involved in that. So these clusters around, positive collision, including the money, the creativity, the technology, the entrepreneurs, bringing them all together. So we go out, we sponsor a space in Shoreditch with central working. We recently ran an open innovation event where we invited 300 entrepreneurs to come and help us solve some of our business problems with a view to doing business with them. Because what do entrepreneurs need? They need customers, so we can help them by buying from them rather than just traditional large enterprise companies. And we've recently announced our own FinTech accelerator program in conjunction with Techstars. So this is giving mentoring, investment, and co-working space for 10 companies that are all going to be in the same place. Very, very exciting. So how can design help? Well, think about it as its application being very wide. So we see design helping define purpose and helping design strategy. We see design actually helping shape what your company or what your organization's brand is, because your brand ultimately is not your marketing and what the poster says, it's the reality of using your product and services. So would you rather spend £10 million on an advertising campaign or put that £10 million into designing and creating a product and service that people love and talk about? And today companies spend this much on making promises and this much on keeping them, and we need to start thinking about that. Design can also help you think about how you operationalize an experience and how you're organized. So design's remit is actually very big. Tom, meet Tem. So businesses will also talk about having a target operating model. This is a really important part of running a business. But actually, you need to couple that with a target experience model. So what do you want your customers to experience? What is the go-to? And you can start designing yourself by just imagining when you're doing something in government, in education, in business, is this something I would want to experience? Is this appropriate? Is it easy to use? So on and so forth. So have a target experience model. So design can help you in lots of different ways. Make leaps, innovate, deliver value across multiple touch points, help convert your brand intent into reality. It's a really long list. So I hope that's convinced you that design is part of the business equation. Design does not have all the answers, but it's something that it's not part of your organization, either through creative partners or something that you do inside the organization. You're frankly missing out and putting your business at risk. When I was coming here, so earlier I played you a search of meetup.com, and I've talked about clustering and innovation and how important those are. So what happens, I thought, well, let me do a search for meetups in Belfast, just to have an idea, just to do a contrast. Obviously hundreds in. Now, if you type in innovation for Belfast meetups, there aren't any. Now, I'm not saying this is a scientific test. If you type in startup for Belfast, there's one, and it's a very good group actually, Women Who Code, there's all over the place. If you type design in Belfast, there's 5, including one which is to do with yoga and meditation or something. But anyway, my broad point here is you cannot underestimate the significance of culture and the connectivity around it. And without that, so design needs a context. Yeah, design is there to do something. It's to help an entrepreneur. It's to have an effect. So what is that oxygen that's perhaps missing? So I wanted to leave and set up a kind of debate around 5 discussion points. To all the business people out there who have the chance to speak to some designers, you know, where do you see your business in 5 years' time? Considering all the change and disruption, where do you see your business in 5 years' time? Maybe the designers around the table can help. What are you worrying about? I think designers out there, we often display an incredible lack of empathy with business. We'll say, oh, business people, you can't design, hands off, I know best. But actually, a business person, you're worried about paying staff, you've got all these other things that the designer may not necessarily know about. So how do you bridge that gap? And designers, we need to listen to what business is worried about and see if we can help them with. And then, is your customer experience and the value exchange that you're providing actually in line with your brand's intention? And then to the designers, are we actually got the right sort of skills? Or are we actually talking about visual design and web design? Because actually, that's not going to drive innovation. Future of banking is not going to be decided by UI design. It's not going to be decided by nice colors and typography. It's going to be decided by a transformational interaction, service, and experience design, which, yes, as a bonus, would look and be beautiful. And then to everyone in the room, what can be done to boost the culture and the other ingredients that helps innovation flourish that we see, like in Silicon Valley, like in London, Oxford, Cambridge, where you have these startup communities and lots of entrepreneurs. And presumably there is lots and lots of talent in Northern Ireland, but what is the missing ingredients that's somehow making it not necessarily ignite? I hope you found that useful. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Lee. Typically with a very interesting address, it presents a picture, but it also prompts some array of questions, questions that you have